Hey everyone, so I'm going to just quickly review production costs, revenue, and profits, which is basically reviewing the first part of theory of the firm before we get into market structures. So let's begin with production. So we split our analysis of production between two time periods. We'll look at production in the short run and production in the long run. So SR and LR. SR is short run, LR is long run. All right, in the short run, we use the law of diminishing returns to analyze production in the short run. Basically, the short run is the period of time where you have at least one factor of production is fixed. If you have one fixed factor of production and say a variable input, a variable factor of production, if you plot the variable factor of production against output, so variable input on the x-axis, output on the y-axis, this is the shape of the total product curve right there. At first, it increases at an increasing rate, and then starts to increase at a decreasing rate and eventually begins to decline. There might be a period, like a range of input here where it's constant before it begins to decline, but that's the general shape. Now, if you try to derive marginal product and average product from that, this is what they would look like. Marginal product at first increases, and then once diminishing returns sets in, at this point here, when diminishing return sets in, marginal product begins to decline. Average product is an upside down sort of U-shaped curve, average product, and it intersects marginal product at its maximum. Now remember, when marginal product is higher than average product is increasing. When marginal product is lower than average product is decreasing. Average product is maximized when it intersects marginal product. And here are the equations for marginal product and average product. Marginal product is equal to delta TP over delta labor. Labor here is the variable input. It could be any other input that's variable, but the point is it's the change in total product over the change in the variable input. AP, on the other hand, average product, is TP divided by the number of units of the variable input, which is labor in this example. Now, what about the long run? In the long run, what happens is the firm experiences returns to scale. Basically, in the long run, all factors are variable, so the firm could alter the levels of all of its factors of production. The firm could experience increasing returns to scale, where the output increases more than proportionately to the change in the scale of production, to the change in the levels of all inputs. The firm could experience constant returns to scale, where output changes by the same proportion as inputs. So say, for example, the firm doubles its inputs, and this leads to a doubling of its output. That's constant returns to scale. Increasing returns to scale would be, say, for example, the firm doubling its inputs, and the output triples. The firm could also experience decreasing returns to scale. Decreasing returns to scale is when output increases less than proportionately when compared to the increase in inputs. So say, for example, the firm triples its inputs, but its output only doubles. The output still increases, but increases by a lower percentage when compared to the increase in inputs. There are no real diagrams for increasing constant and decreasing returns to scale. The diagrams are more for economies and diseconomies of scale, which I will cover in the next slide. All right, so this brings us to costs. Okay, costs, like production, are analyzed in the short run versus the long run. In the short run, like production, we analyze them using the law of diminishing returns. All right, and here what we do is output becomes on the x-axis and cost is on the y-axis. So the total variable cost curve is actually sort of the opposite of the total product curve. When total product is increasing at an increasing rate, total variable cost is increasing at a decreasing rate, and then diminishing return sets in and total variable cost starts to increase at an increasing rate. Total fixed cost is fixed, it's a horizontal line. And when you add both together, you will get a total cost curve that is parallel to the TVC curve, and the vertical distance between both curves is the fixed cost, the total fixed cost. Once again, from the TVC curve, you can derive the marginal cost curve. When TVC is increasing at an increasing rate, marginal cost is falling, and then marginal cost begins to rise. The average cost and the average variable cost curves are both upside down, they're both U-shaped, with the minimum AC and the minimum AVC intersecting MC. Now remember, when marginal cost is lower than AC and AVC, both AC and AVC are decreasing. When marginal cost is higher, both AC and AVC are increasing. Okay? And here are the equations. So total cost is equal to total fixed cost plus total variable cost. Average cost is equal to AFC, average fixed cost plus AVC. Average cost is also calculated by dividing the total cost divided by the quantity. AFC, average fixed cost, is total fixed cost divided by quantity. AVC, average variable cost, is total variable cost divided by quantity. MC, marginal cost, is delta TC divided by delta quantity. Now, in the long run, we use the theory or the concept of economies of scale versus diseconomies of scale to analyze changes in costs in the long run. Now, remember in the previous slide, I talked about increasing constant and decreasing returns to scale. So, when the firm is experiencing increasing returns to scale, this translates into economies of scale when you look at its long-run average cost. Basically, when the firm is experiencing increasing returns to scale, the long-run average cost begins to fall. We call this economies of scale. These are the advantages of the firm growing in size. When the firm is experiencing decreasing returns to scale, its long-run average cost begins to rise, and we call this rise in long-run average cost diseconomies of scale. Now remember, the main diagram you need to remember for the long run is the economies of scale and diseconomies of scale diagram, as well as that the long-run average cost curve is an envelope. It's really an envelope curve that envelopes a series of short-run average cost curves. So this is short-run AC1, short-run AC2, and so on. The long-run average cost curve is an envelope curve that envelopes a series of short-run average cost curves. Remember, the long run is really a series of short runs. Firms are never really in the long run for long, if you know what I mean. Once they enter the long run, they've really just begun a new short run. So remember this, the long run is a series of consecutive short runs. Now, before I move on to revenue and profit, I just want to quickly compare production and costs because this is a very important thing that students need to know. Remember, production and costs are basically mirror images. There are two sides of the same coin. Okay? When you plot variable input against output, and it gives you the MP and the AP curve, the MC and average variable cost curve should be a mirror image. When marginal product is increasing, marginal cost is decreasing. When marginal product is decreasing, marginal cost is increasing. When average product is increasing, average variable cost is decreasing. When average product is decreasing, average variable cost is increasing. Okay? Just don't forget that we put output on the y-axis when it comes to drawing AP and MP, but we put output on the x-axis when it comes to drawing MC and AVC. It's very important to pay attention. In the AP and MP diagram, output is on the y-axis, variable input is on the x-axis. However, in the MC-AVC diagram, output is on the x-axis and costs are on the y-axis.